As a minimum, you should be ending this bull market with at least what you had when you started, not less. And it's legit scary, the altcoin advice I see YouTubers share. We're going to do some detailed analysis on crypto coins in general. We're going to have a look at the Fed meeting recently, Bitcoin dominance, correlation with the Nasdaq. We're going to look at general market trends as well, to help us determine exactly where we are in this cycle with no confusion. Rather than just being in la la land where you're just praying that some of your coins or bags pump and then you end up missing entire narratives following the wrong people and coins literally running to billions. So let's jump into it. I'm going to start with the number of coins that are being launched. Let's talk about that. Guys, this cycle is different in some ways, but generally in terms of time frames there hasn't been anything crazy apart from the fact that there's just way more coins than ever before. So right now, if you look at this chart from Dune Analytics, just on Solana there are 27.8 million coins. Like in total there are nearly 37 million. And the thing you have to think about is just compare it to something like, let's just say January 2021, there were 277,000, which is still a lot, but look at the difference. It's almost exponential the way we're rising. And the problem with this is when you're following people who recommend certain coins, not everything's going to get a pump. And even the ones that pump will do so for a short period of time. It just makes logical sense. It's the numbers, it's maths, call it whatever you want to. There isn't enough money to go around pumping everything for the entire cycle. It's not possible. So why do you think as we go through each of the different trends during this cycle, we jumped from one to the other? For example, we were talking about injective for a while, then we were talking about Solana meme coins like WIF, then we went into AI meme coins, we had all of the AI altcoins, the smaller cap ones run, then we were talking about Hyperliquid, then we were talking about Pengu coin. It just jumps from one thing to another. So let's just be clear about that. Whatever happens for the rest of the cycle, and I'll share my thoughts a little bit later in this video, just remember it's going to be a select few coins that pump, and it's not going to be all of them. So you have to be very, very selective, and your holding period has to be quite short, to be honest with you. And you don't need to take my word for it. Just look through charts. So let's have a look at a couple just to illustrate the point. This is injective. Injective is sitting nowhere and it's not going to do anything because obviously this move from August all the way up here to the December highs is corrective. Like that is a horrible, horrible chart. So at best, it's just going to make some, if everything pumped, it's going to make some crap squiggle up to here and call it a day. That's it, done. And the reason for that is it's had its time in the sun. And if you go back to a one-day chart, that time was here. So from January 2023 to the end of 2023, that was Injective's time. And it was an amazing time. And if you actually have a look at the amount it pumped, it was crazy, 2,700%. That's the alt season. So we've had several alt seasons in this cycle already. It's happened already. A lot of it's already happened. So these YouTubers waiting for this magical alt season right at the end of the cycle, I don't know what's going on there, unless they've just not been through previous cycles before, which is unfortunate, but fine. So literally this went from nothing, like $1 or whatever, all the way up to 40 and above. Crazy returns, 40x, 50x, whatever you want to call it. I certainly didn't catch most of that. Some people would have catched a good part of it. I was here towards the end, here, trying to catch the ends of the move. And that was still good. You know, you'll still make some multiples. But obviously, a lot of them are the early movers. Solana was the same. It went from nothing, like $5 to $10 or whatever it was, all the way up to 200. So they've done the majority of the moves. We're now waiting for what's the injective for this final phase, if you believe that that will still actually happen. So cement that in your mind as well. That's the next point. We have had multiple alt seasons during this. Don't kid yourself. Please look at my last video as well, because I went through a lot of the technical parts of this and completely why, things like FET are completely cooked and stuff. People thought I was crazy then in that video, but have a look at it and you'll see down from the chart that obviously it is cooked and it's absolutely right. Can it do some other incredible pump all the way back to all-time highs again? Who knows? Maybe, extremely unlikely. The multiples are going to be limited anyway. But really, it had its alt season that was here. So all the way actually from when Bitcoin pumped, all the way up to the March highs. That was a very nice long alt season for FET. Not going to do that again. It's done now. Cooked, finished. Move on to another altcoin. You can bag hold all of these altcoins if you want to. And this over a year has only dumped. So I don't know, and this is the other problem, I don't know what technical analysis people are doing. I mean, I've seen it, it's pretty shocking, but like there's nothing on this chart. Use any indicator you like, there's nothing on this chart that's bullish, even in the slightest. Now, like I said, small percent chance that I could be wrong and this suddenly turns and goes absolutely crazy to $10-20. Extremely unlikely in my opinion. Now you could turn around and say, what's the point of TA? What about all the utility with all these altcoins, and how much they're making and doing and all the amazing developments. Ethereum has done loads of stuff over the last 12 to 24 months. Nobody cares. It's an attention economy. Attention. So what gets attention will get pumps in price, and then when everybody starts aping in, it can go quite crazy, but then it can get severe drops too. Now, Ethereum is a more established coin, and everybody's looking at ETH, BTC, and we'll talk about all of that in a bit. But don't get bogged down in this stuff. Like, I've been mocking Ethereum, as a lot of other analysts have, for a very long time, and for good reason. The chart is shit. Like, I don't know how else to explain this. There's no point investing in stuff like this. You're supposed to be invested in stuff where you're seeing the pumps clearly happening at the beginning from nowhere. You ape in, you make loads of multiples, you sell, and you run away onto the next hype. That's how it works, especially this cycle, because there are so many coins. Talk about Fed briefly. So Fed, again, quite straightforward with this stuff. So they haven't done anything. They've just, this is the first time they've actually paused interest rates cuts. So slightly bearish, if you want to call it that. Now, it's funny that we're all looking at FOMC meetings now, because we're just hoping for anything to pump our bags, which I know is understandable, but try not to do that. And anytime there is a meeting, it is important in terms of liquidity. Is there going to be quantitative easing or tightening, stuff like that? That is kind of important for sure. But note that when they have a meeting, it's never the time of the meeting that determines where we're going to move to. So when the meeting happens, you want to wait 1 to 2 days after to see what the real market reaction is and what the real follow through is. Not immediately. We might get a little pump, little dump, meaningless. I wait now. So I usually wait a day or two to see what will happen. However, the prevailing trend kind of sets the context sometimes. And you can see we've been in a clear downtrend since mid-January on this altcoin and many other altcoins as well. So immediately when you see impulsive moves to the downside and sideways price action, you do tend to get worried that it'll continue. Now we are forming almost like accumulation at these lows. So what another thing that could happen is we get a little dump, and that's just a test. The test of the lows, and then we reverse and then we run from there. That's another very, very common setup, and one you should look for. So if we get a little dump over the next couple of days, see if the market V reverses. If it doesn't and it's doing sideways nonsense, I'd be very worried for a good period of time, at least a couple of months, that we're just going to slide into nowhere. So that's that. Reaction delay with FOMC meetings. Always wait. Let's go on to the next point. The next point is the concept of minimum requirement. This is what I call it anyway. And when you're looking at market structure, you want to ask yourself, like, have a lot of the major crypto coins done the minimum requirement for what they should have done this cycle? So let's have a look at Sol first, and let's go back onto a daily chart, and then we'll have a look at Bitcoin as well, for example. So if you look at Sol and its move all the way back from $8-9, crazy. So people are saying, where's the alt season? Like, what the hell do you think this is? But anyway, minimum requirement is if a coin is strong, bullish, as Sol has been, has it done 5 ways and has it tagged all-time highs? I think it has. I think it's done the 1. This was the 3. And then we came down to the 4. So remember last year, all that 6 months of sideways, nothing happening. And then it needs to do a final run up. Ideally break previous all-time highs as well, but definitely break this high of March. And it needs to do it in 5 waves. And then you could say there's an argument, just an argument, that there's a top in this particular coin. Remember, not all coins. There might be other things that pump too. But I'm looking at Solana in particular. And I look at this, and I'm like, all a bit choppy towards the end. But is that 1, 2, 3, 4, which doesn't quite overlap, so it could work. And this was the final spike up. Whilst all the meme coins were really, really strong, and they were getting a lot of buzz too. So there's a lot of attention there, for sure. And it's quite possible attention peaked and has dropped off. So could that be a cycle top for Solana? Way, way lower than people were thinking, around $300. Still amazing, obviously, from the lows. It meets, in my opinion, minimum requirements. So when it meets minimum requirements, it doesn't leave anything on the table there. So if we suddenly sold off from here over the next 2 years and Solana was done for there, it won't surprise me, because structure says that, yeah, it's possible. And if you look at Bitcoin, it's possible too. Let me explain the difference, just so we're clear here. So again, on a daily chart, let's say Bitcoin's pumping all the way from the lows, which it had been doing, and let's say it didn't break this all-time high in March. It was just languishing here at 59k, going sideways. It hasn't made the minimum requirements. Now, absolutely, it could just stop there and fall. There's a very low percent possibility that could be the cycle done. But nothing on its history and on its structure suggests that. However, now things have changed. Now, we could argue 1, 2, 3. This is just one count, by the way. People look at it in different ways. But you could argue, and then this is the final 3, 4, and then a final little wick 5. You could argue we've met minimum requirements. Now remember, just because Bitcoin tops doesn't mean all of crypto has topped, obviously. You still get a change in Bitcoin dominance, which I'm going to talk about now. And that's when you get this fabled alt season, which isn't really an alt season. It's just the final crappy coins will do a scam rally at the end. And there's only a few of them, and they're usually ones related to a newer area of crypto this cycle. So obviously this cycle, last cycle, there's a lot of metaverse, NFT type of stuff. This time, very likely AI or something related to AI, like AI agents, stuff like that. So this potentially could top here, and it could pull back, and you can get alts running. Now, another way you can look at it is this could have a longer sideways consolidation. This could all be a 4, which is fine, a month or two, get a few altcoins popping, and then this does this final 5 to 120, 130. And that's when you get the final alt season. So you still get 2 little mini alt seasons, which would be a bonus, which would be a blessing, obviously, to a lot of people who are now jumping in, wondering where alt season is. They might be lucky to get a couple of tiny ones in the rest of 2025. Now, but remember, Bitcoin, if it's done here, it might only be the one. And have a look at Bitcoin dominance. So what is this chart? This chart is basically Bitcoin's market cap compared to all of the other crappy crypto coins, which I've just shown you are like millions of them. And if you look back, so let's actually zoom out even further. Let's go into a 2-day. You can see here quite clearly, 2017, we peaked Bitcoin dominance before we had that final kind of altcoin rally, XRP and other crap, when this went down. So when Bitcoin dominance goes down, you get that final rally. So this was around January 2021, and then the next few months in 2021, if you remember, was a very, very good year for altcoins. That was the first one, and then we had a second little metaverse scam run after that. Now, we're going all the way back up again, but where are we peaking? And do we have to go all the way back to these highs? Absolutely not. It could just stop at different places. But we've not really seen that come down. Now, you could argue Bitcoin is more important, because there's so many coins now. Bitcoin's more important than ever. And this low here, which seems to be higher now every year, it could stop much higher again. Because people are actually just going to be like, look, I just want to invest in Bitcoin. I don't want to touch any of the other stuff because it's just pump and dumps everywhere. Completely understandable, and that could happen. So I don't think we're going to push all the way down, but we should still get a push down. It's what happens during that push down. What happens usually, some altcoins should run and there's some final alt season. That's what I'm expecting. Now that hasn't turned yet, but that's due. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on this Bitcoin dominance chart. Let's have a look at trends. This is a very simple Google Trends chart. I love Google Trends. I use it a lot. It just gives me an idea of when, especially when retail are involved, which I like. I need to know when the peak of retail was, when the peak of interest was. And it's so obvious usually, not even from Google Trends, just being on social media. It's usually obvious when you're at a peaky moment. Again, if you've been through multiple cycles, you'll know exactly what I mean. Now, the highest ever for interest here was actually in the 2017 cycle, when people were first hearing about Bitcoin, including me, back in 2017. But notice that the peaks were a lot lower this time. So you could argue that the peak's probably going to be lower too. So even if you get a little bit more of a pump, we're not expecting interest to go all the way back up at all. And I think there's been massive interest in crypto in 2024 already. And obviously with Trump winning the election and all of his announcements, you could not get more bullish narrative for crypto. And still everything's dumping. That shouldn't be a cause for, no problem, it'll happen, just be patient. It should be a massive cause for concern, because you're never going to get politicians pump your bags the way they're doing right now. And I have a theory on what might happen after, and I'll get to, I'll touch on that toward the end of the video. But anyway, let's get back to this. So that's what we're looking at in terms of trends. So where do we go from here? So if it's altcoins, in meme coins, all I'm waiting for is another phase where it's another set of stuff that's popular. Don't know what that would be yet. but it's going to be a combination of a few old coins pumping and a lot of new ones. That's meme coins. But with altcoins, obviously, it's a little bit different. And what you're looking for here is basically the early leaders for that next final move. And I don't think that's going to happen yet. And I wouldn't be surprised if we actually get a full flush in the next few weeks for altcoins. And if you actually have a look at the charts, I mean, the charts look dreadful, like across the board. And like I said in my last video, I think some of these really could do with testing their August lows. Is literally that bad. But I mean, stuff like this, like AVAX, not going anywhere. Like, this is literally going nowhere. And it's so easy, as I mentioned in my last video, to cross a lot of these off your list. Most of these are not going to be on your list. The only ones that, are curious to me right now, and I am watching, is things like XRP. Only because it could have had its move there. Because remember, minimum requirements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Minimum requirements made there. That could definitely be a top. And if you zoom out, it's actually an all-time high. So if you zoom out to weekly, I think it tagged on TradingView here anyway, all-time highs. So this definitely could fit as it's done. But there's a chance it could obviously pump again. However, the multiples are lower because it's already so high. So if it does a tiny little pump to like $4 and stuff, what you're really trying to get in terms of multiples doesn't make sense. So that's why I'm waiting for new opportunities. So I'm having a look to see what will move. A lot of people think ETH will move once Bitcoin dominance falls. If like I said, a lot of stuff is similar to the last cycle, just worse. It's similar but worse. And if it's similar, yeah, maybe ETH will do a little corrective rally back to 4,000-5,000 and stuff. But remember, the multiples aren't there. It's what moves with ETH that's going to count. It's a smaller altcoin, still in the top, 500 or 1,000 by market cap. It's those smaller ones that I'm going to be looking at because I need multiples, especially this last phase of the cycle. You need to maximize it. Remember, I said right at the beginning of the video, some of you are actually down coming into this bull market cycle, but that's okay. Like there is still time, but just really think about which coins you're in and whether they've already peaked. Like literally just go back through the chart. This is graph GRT. Go back through the chart, look at the chart and be like, did this actually peak all the way back in 2021? Why the hell am I even trading this nonsense now? And please learn some basic TA. It will save you in the cycle. I mean, a lot of influencers unfortunately don't know any TA, or they're very bad at TA. And it will hold them back, especially now when there's so many coins. You can't describe a coin that's going to do well and based on that description of fundamentals or unlocks or how much liquidity is going to come or airdrops, you can't base a buying decision on that. It's not a good idea. Like, it's way easier to look at a chart. Like, I discussed Pengu. This was a while ago, and this was, I think it was on Twitter. I probably shared it as well, maybe on YouTube. I can't remember. All my socials are down below, so you feel free to follow here. But basically, if you go on a lower time frame, so this is an airdrop of a coin, a crypto coin, which is related to the Pudgy Penguins NFT. And I told everybody, like, this is what's going to happen. And the reason I thought it was going to happen is because every single other airdrop related to NFTs moved this way. So it's just, this is TA. This is what TA is. It's always a dump at the beginning, and then you get some rally. It'll bottom after 12 to 18 hours, typically, I said on average, so usually a day or so, which it did, and then you get some sort of rally. And with ApeCoin, for example, it was a very decent rally with some multiples. With Pengu, it was complete shit, but it was still a rally. And it only went after kind of a week or so to, I think, barely a 2x. And then it's dumped ever since. What do I think is going to happen with this coin? Gonna dump, obviously. Again, look at all of the other airdrops related to NFTs. Once the attention's gone, narrative's gone, nobody cares. Now, yes, this could turn around and suddenly they do some amazing marketing and it grabs attention again and it goes vertical. Very small probability. We're dealing with probabilities here. If it's unlikely, I don't want to trade it. And people are just buying dips, dip after dip after dip. Based on what? Like, what is your rationale here that this is going to randomly turn around? When I've just explained to you there's 37 million coins we have to deal with right now. Now, obviously, a lot of them were immediate rugs and stuff like that. So realistically, in terms of decent coins that have any kind of random potential, it's still hundreds of thousands. It's still 100,000 coins. Even if it's just 100,000, that could do something. That's a lot to pick from. And literally, liquidity is going to be concentrated on just some. People are still trading WIF. Like, what madness this dog WIF had. It's not going to do anything. Like, why the hell are you trading it? This was last year. This was March 2024, not now. Another thing to note with crypto, this is Bitcoin. And this line at the bottom, this blue line, is its correlation with the NASDAQ 100. And anytime it's above the top, it's positive correlation. And you can see here it's very highly correlated around these areas. Only tiny bits when crypto's having a dump usually and NASDAQ still going up, that's when it's not correlated. So generally, I mean, that's why crypto sometimes is even worse than the NASDAQ in terms of holding a trend. But anyway, generally, especially since kind of the lows we saw October, November 2022, very strong correlation. So we need to see what's going on with the NASDAQ. And what makes up the majority of the, not majority, but a large portion of NASDAQ and S&P 500? Well, it's NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is in trouble, in my opinion. Like, I mean, obviously, it's had some crazy parabolic run. So obviously, it's going to get some massive sell-off at some point. Like, it's up 1,200% from the lows we saw in October, November 2022. So that's when Bitcoin had bottomed out as well. So crazy. It's literally moving like a crypto coin almost. But something I've been saying for months is so obvious, and hopefully it's obvious to everybody watching right now as well. AI, the whole thing about AI is going to make everything cheaper, way, way, way cheaper. Just think about it. Think about having your own AI agents, apps on your phone that are agents, doing everything, running everything for you. And everybody's competing to see who's got the best AI. And it's just a race to the bottom in terms of charging people for this stuff, when already DeepSeek have shown that you could just download DeepSeek right now on your device. They have many different models. Some are smaller in terms of how much memory and space and stuff you need. Some are larger, obviously. But you can do that right now, and then you're good to go. You don't need to pay any subscription. No subscription, no cost, no nothing. That's what's going to happen. And these companies like NVIDIA, for example, one of the main things they were doing was providing the hardware for all of these companies. So people were buying billions and billions off of them. That's not going to happen anymore if everybody could just run everything locally, which is obviously the definite, in terms of the direction we're headed, that's where we're headed. So some of these tech stocks are going to have massive downturns. Now, whether that's topped already, hard to say for sure. Whether it will do one more minor pump, or whether it will just dump and then do a lower high. And is that lower high move where everybody gets one final enjoyment of a rally and then we're done. But because we're so closely correlated, when this dumps, we dump. I mean, even just look at where the lows came in, exactly with Bitcoin. And where the highs came in before. Look, November 2021, exactly with Bitcoin. So if all of tech is in trouble, and I think big tech is in trouble, definitely this year, but likely much earlier in the year, like within the next few months, a lot of these big tech stocks will see their forever top, their forever highest ever top, in my opinion. And they're going to go down because what's going to happen with AI? So I've just told you it's all cheap and stuff like that. So stay with me for a minute. What that means is me or you, any kind of small company, can literally have the same power in terms of AI, compute, etc. as these big companies. But we can ship faster because we can quickly work through. We don't need to do millions of meetings and stuff like that. I'm not literally talking about me and you. Just think about small companies that just don't have all of the overheads and issues and red tape and stuff like that. So if they're challenging big tech for the next new inventions, how does big tech still have an advantage? It's almost a disadvantage that they're so big, strangely. So that's where I think we're going. Again, I'm going a little bit off tangent, off topic. I hope this video, at the minimum, is a bit of a reality check in terms of where we are in the cycle, which is kind of like really late now. We're towards the end. But also, if you've been limited in your opportunity and your returns, please be careful who you're following. Understand that a lot of these altcoins, some of these crappy coins, Link and stuff like that, they still pay influencers, calls, we call them, all over Twitter, YouTube, stuff like that, to make regular posts like once a month or once a week, just to keep them afloat, doing whatever the hell they're doing. All you have to do is hand on heart, say, if I bought this last year, where would I be right now? Just simple stuff like that. Just zoom back, like for it brings to March. Has it done anything, or is it even lower? Why are you in it? Why are you waiting a whole year? You literally might have been better off in some of these having your money in a bank account and earning 5% interest, or APY on some other crypto coin, or staking or something like that. May have been better off. But I would never recommend it with crypto coins, because obviously if the value of the coin goes down, you'll lose out anyway. Food for thought. Thanks for listening.